All right, so if you haven't realised, it's the middle of winter, and in my opinion, we can now start to look forward to the Spring Carnival in Australia. One of the all-time great few months of racing, I think. But I want to talk about some of the international runners that are coming from, Japan, France, Ireland, England, all over the place to Australia this spring. And I'll talk about some that I think should come that aren't like confirmed going, but I think should come because I think they'd be well placed in some of those races. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Some real curveballs have been like announced recently, which makes it more interesting. But we'll start off with the Cox Plate, which is going to be run at Flemington this year. And in my opinion, I feel like it changes the whole race. Like I feel like the fact that it's run at Flemington, which is a big, big running sort of track, as opposed to Moonee Valley, which is like really short turns and a really short straight, which doesn't suit European horses or Japanese horses. It's one of those weird races, I think. Like we saw Adelaide win it in like 2011 or whatever, and he was one of the like only really good European horses to win it. And so, we haven't seen that many horses target this race, but I feel like it's at Flemington this year. We're seeing some really elite horses that are planning to come here. So, yeah, we'll start off with Danon Desile, which is one of the more recent ones. He's an incredible horse. He won I think it was like the Japan Derby as a 3-year-old, and he won a Dubai Shima Classic as well. So, he's one of the more classy 1.5 mile horses in the world. I do think 2,000 metres is probably too short for him, but they did say this is one of 2 target races for him. So, it'll be very interesting if they, bring him out here. Although my only thing with him is that I remember at York when, he went to the Juddmonte International as that little run before the start of his, Japan Cup preparation. He just self-destructed a little bit in the mounting yard, and he kind of took off to the barriers with Keita Tasaki on board. And by the way, I put the jockeys on each of these horses. These are like probable jockeys, I think. But he's a bit of a head case down on Desile, but he's very talented, very classy. He's won Group 1s. And yeah, he'd be an amazing addition to the Cox Plate if he came out here. Now the next one, he doesn't really need any introductions. He's one of the best in the world. Calandigan comes out of France. He's a gelding, and what hasn't he done? Like he's won basically every big 1.5 mile race aside from the Breeders' Cup Turf and the Arc, which he can't even run in. He's won bloody a Japan Cup, won a Champions Stakes. He's won a bloody King George as well. So, he's just an incredible horse. And people are saying, with Calandigan, he'll just go to the Champions Stakes at Ascot and then go to Japan. But I think this Cox Plate is a perfect prep run for the Japan Cup, especially being at Flemington. I don't know, this might be a bit of a weird take, but I think Flemington's, somewhat comparable to Flemington. Tokyo is. I think I said Japan is comparable to Flemington, but I think Tokyo is. I think Calandigan, I think him going to Cox Plate is more realistic than a lot of people are thinking. He's a geldie. It's not like you're protecting some sort of stud value with him by, just keeping him in Europe and running him in like a King George, a Champion Stakes, a Juddmonte International. You can do anything with this horse. He's the sort of horse you want to travel. As I have been. So, yeah, I think Calandigan running here would be just unreal. And I think the Cox Plate is a perfect prep run for the Japan Cup. So, yeah, I think he's going to come here. I think he's going to come to Flemington. But we'll move to the next one. This one's pretty unlikely. You can probably tell this is quite unlikely, but at the start of the season, it was being spoken about. Gastard, one of my favourite 2-year-olds, won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf in very, very impressive fashion. Obviously trained by the master Aidan O'Brien, comes out of Ballydoyle. He'd probably be ridden by Ryan Moore. And I still think 2,000 metres is his distance. We haven't seen him up to that level yet. He won the Irish 2,000 unis. He came second by a nose to Boeco in the St James's Palace. But I just think 2,000 metres is probably his trip. He might be their miler. He's going to run in the Sussex Stakes next week or the week after. And, he might just stay at a mile and stay in Europe and go to the QE2 at the end of the season and then, might go to the Breeders' Cup Mile. But, I just feel like this horse would be, so suited to, a Cox Plate. I feel like if it was at Moonee Valley, that would suit him better because, he's a miler going up to 2,000 metres. I think, it's a bit of a shorter sort of style of a track. So I think if it was at Moonee Valley, that would suit him a lot more. But yeah, I still think he's like a bit like there's a chance he could come out here because obviously Coolm will have a big operation in Australia if he wins the Cox Plate and has this amazing European 3-year-old campaign. He'd be a massive sell to the Australian breeding industry, I think. So Gustard's one of the sort of interesting ones that I think he might just stay as a miler in Europe, but there's a realistic chance. Like I won't be surprised if he comes out here for a Cox Plate. That's what I think. But yeah, I probably spent a little bit too long on the Cox Plate. We'll move to the next race. Just one horse for this. Caulfield Cup. 1.5 handicap. James J. Braddock, obviously. Very talented 3-year-old. And he came third in the Epsom Derby. And then he was in the Irish Derby last. And I was on him in this race. And he just like didn't fire at all. Like he just seemed very like lazy and just like Dylan Brown McMonagall kind of dropped him out a little bit. But I just thought he was just so lazy and I thought he's a much better horse than he showed in that race. So I think that he'll probably improve. Like, I don't know if he'll have a run in between, but I'm pretty sure it's been said that this horse will go to Caulfield and then the Melbourne Cup. Obviously, part owned by Aussie Care, who's, owns Jimmy Star, those sorts of horses. So this horse will almost definitely come out here. Whether he goes to a Caulfield Cup, I'm not sure, but I feel like that's a more winnable race out of this one and the Melbourne Cup. I feel like it's more winnable for him. He has good form over 1.5 miles. He came third at Epsom, albeit it was a very heavy track. But that form is stacked up. We've seen, Maltese Cross win in Paris 2 nights ago. And then Christmas Day, I think, came second in the Irish Derby. So, some good horses win that race. And I think you can put a pen through that Irish Derby. There was something obviously like, he's a bit of a culty sort of horse. He might have just had a bit of like a, bit of a temper tantrum. Because I remember at Epsom, he was like really like hot and fizzy going up to the stalls. So, he might have a few sort of temperament issues, this horse, but, he's got a lot of talent and I think he could be a really good chance in a Caulfield Cup. I think he was like $26 as well. So, could be some good value there, but not really an anti-post punter. So probably won't take any of that. But we'll go to the next one. Golden Eagle, 1,500 metres at Randwick for the 4-year-olds, worth just a ridiculous amount of money. Rodeo Drive now is a very good horse. He won the NHK Mile Cup, which is a 3-year-old race in Japan. I think it's around at Tokyo. I'm not too sure. I'm pretty sure it's Tokyo, but this horse came from a different postcode to win this race with Damien Lane on board. He's got a ridiculous turn of foot. Now, I get it. She's Alibi's an absolute freak. She's like $1.90 for the race. But I feel like this might be her main opponent in Rodeo Drive. Has a ridiculous turn of foot. I do have an issue that like 1,500 metres might be a bit on the short side for him. I think a mile, maybe up to 2,000 metres might be more his sort of go. But, if he shows the sort of turn of foot that he did in that Group 1 last start, like that was just, like average horses don't do that. So, I think, if he gets a comfortable run, like Damien Lane drops him out a little bit in that Golden Eagle, he might come flying home and you might get She's Alibi, I think. So he's a very interesting contender for this race. Now, obviously, this is the most obvious one of the whole video. The Everest, Kai Ying Rising. I was going to say like Mission Central, obviously, the Ballydoyle winner of the King's Stand at Ascot the other week. I was going to say him for the Everest, but he absolutely stunk up the gaff in the July Cup, so he probably won't come out, and I think he'll stay at like 5 furlongs. I hope he does. So, yeah, Kai Ying Rising, obviously, one of the best sprinters we've ever seen. The best sprinter since Black Caviar. The second best sprinter of all time behind Black Caviar. But he could very well take her place in the near future. Now, the plan with this horse is they're going to farm the Everest, I'm pretty sure, over the next few years. He's going to come out here. He'll be like $1.20 or something, probably. Probably shorter on the day, but, he's just a legend. And I think we're going to get into a situation where overseas horses don't travel for this race because there's just a monster waiting for them. There's just Kai Ying Rising there. And he'll probably go and win a second Everest, and it'll be a phenomenal day out at Randwick, I'd say. But we'll go on to the last 2 slides. Now, these are the horses that I think should come. Now, there might have been some talk, like a few whispers, maybe like a post-race interview where the trainer said, we could target, this race in Sydney or this race in Melbourne. But I feel like there's nothing really, this is pretty speculative, these horses. Sons and Lovers. Now, He's a very useful stayer. He won the Red Sea Turf Handicap at Riyadh on Saudi Cup night, which is over 3,000 metres, so he can stay all day. And he won that French Group 2 the other night, over 2,800 metres. So he's a good stayer. He's trained by Joseph O'Brien, who, he targets the Melbourne Cup. He often brings usually like 2 or 3 over. We saw last year he was second with Goody Two Shoes, who, she might come over as well. But Sons and Lovers, I feel like fits that profile of, a bit progressive, was okay last year. I think they ran him in a hurdle race. Maybe not. I don't know. I felt like they ran him in something like that. But he won the Red Sea Turf, won a Group 2 in France, and I feel like he's a perfect candidate for a Melbourne Cup. He's a really tough horse. It seems like the more horses that are around him, the better he goes, because he just grits his teeth and really digs in. But yeah, he's a very good horse, Sons and Lovers. I'm actually kind of surprised how good he's become. I didn't think he was all that good last year, but now he's really found his his abilities at some extended trips like through 3,000 meters, 2,800 meters. I think 2 miles will be no issue for him as well. So I think he's an interesting one if he comes out. The Secret Adversary. Now this one's a bit of a bit left field. Obviously because he's a colt. And he won his first Group 1 the other day in the Prix Jean Prat at Deauville, which is over 7 furlongs. He won the Jersey Stakes prior to that at Ascot. He's been a pretty talented horse. They ran him in a Group 1 in Canada as a 2-year-old. They thought he was pretty ahead of what am I trying to say? When a 2-year-old's really more mature than the others. That's what I mean. But they thought he's been pretty talented from day one. Wins the Jersey, wins a Group 1, beating True Love as well. Jesus, beats the 1,000 Guineas winner. Although she's better over a mile, but that's besides the point. But if this horse is really good over 7 furlongs, they might go City of York, Golden Eagle, because he's got a Group 1. He's got that for his marketing as a stallion. So I think this horse could be a really interesting contender in a race like the Golden Eagle, because he's got pretty good gate speed. He'll just get out, and he's done well at a mile too, so he will just keep staying, and hopefully it isn't too sharp for him. He might run a big race in a Golden Eagle. So I think he's a really interesting horse. He's a really nice horse too. He's a big chestnut horse with a white face and white markings. So I have a bit of a soft spot for this horse, and I also backed him the other day in Deauville. So he's a good horse, I think. Now the next one I'll talk about, Erdonali. Obviously trained by Francis-Henri Graffard, Aga Khan. Now this is, he's a gelding, so he hasn't been seen in the classics. They've been very patient with him. So, he's had 3 starts, I think. I think he runs this weekend in a Group 2. So he's very talented. I remember that debut run at Saint-Cloud where he just it looked like it was AI generated, the win. Mikhail Barzalona just hovered up and just barely touched the horse. But yeah, very nice horse, and I think we might see him out here for a Golden Eagle. And if Calandigan comes, that just incentivizes Francis-Henri Graffard to bring another one as a bit of a stablemate, and to campaign in these Australian races. And I think Erdonali is probably the absolute ideal candidate for a Golden Eagle, obviously being a gelding. So it's a Group 1 now, so it doesn't matter as much, but it's a sort of race that a gelding could really target, and I just think he's perfect for a 7 furlong 1,500 meter hard sort of race. Although in time I think he might be more of a miler, but still he's won over 7 furlongs I think before. So yeah, he should be interesting if he comes out. Now the other ones I want to talk about are alright. So yeah, Byzantine Dream. Now this is a really nice horse. I've actually liked him for a really long time. He won the Red Sea Turf last year, which is the race Sons and Lovers won this year. And he's really good. I feel like he's just been campaigned really badly though. The thing is with these Japanese trainers, they just get so they just put the arc on a pedestal and then kind of ignore some other races where the horse would be really well placed, I think. And if Byzantine Dream had gone to the Melbourne Cup last year, he would have won. That's my opinion, because I think he's more of a 2-miler. He's more of a 2,800 meters up to 2 miles, and they literally ran him in the arc, and he ran an absolutely amazing race. Maybe if the ground was a bit dry, he could have won or something. But I thought he ran amazingly, and I don't know. I just think he's I think he's more of a 2-mile horse, and I think he wins the Melbourne Cup. He gets his good ground. I think he's an excellent chance for this race if he comes out this year. Now the other one I want to talk about is A Boy Named Susie. Now maybe like a few days ago, it was announced that Kieran Maher had bought like bought him for like £3 million, or like bought a percentage of him for £3 million, which I think is pretty justified. I think he's one of the really good mile and a quarter sort of horses in Europe. He was Group 1 placed as a 2-year-old. He ran an absolutely amazing race in the French Derby, ran well in the Eclipse. Like, he's a really good horse. I think it's justified. People were saying, like, oh, like, how can you pay this much money for a horse that's won a maiden? But, like, he's run behind some really, really good horses. But then I think overnight, Donica O'Brien was asked about his, Comanche Brave, who won the July Cup. And then the interviewer asked a question about a boy named Susie. And he, like, wrote it all back. He was like, no, this isn't happening. Like, he's going to be trained for the rest of the season with me, which was very, very strange, to be honest. But, I still think he should come for the Cox Plate, whatever, regardless of what they're doing. Like, he might just stay in Europe, but, I still think a Cox Plate is probably a good race for him. And, being at Flemington and a horse that, like, builds into his race like he does, I think he could be a really good chance, I'd say. And then the last one I want to talk about is More Thunder, obviously trained by William Haggis. He's a bit of an enigma, this horse. I think he's super talented, but in his race, he's just very lazy. And I feel like you need Tom Marquand or like some real brute of a jockey to like really get up after him. And, obviously Kieran Fallon was on him last start and didn't have that, brutality required to get the best out of this horse. But, I think he came like second or third in the Queen Anne Stakes. Ran pretty well in the Lock-In Stakes. He looked like the horse to, back after that race, I thought, which is why I was on him in the Queen Anne Stakes. I think he's a really good horse, but I don't know if he's like that top level of a miler. Like, I don't know if he's, good for like a Sussex Stakes or a, Jacqueline Marwa or a QE2, those sorts of races. So I think when you consider the trainer as well, William Haggis, who has a phenomenal track record of, bringing his horses to Australia and placing them really well in these races, I think you should go to the King Charles Stakes. I think it's a bit of an underrated race. It's worth an absolute fortune, and it's over a mile. And you've got horses that are trying to go to a Cox Plate. So, in some cases, you can argue this race is kind of watered down a little bit. And I think, More Thunder for the King Charles Stakes could be like a very realistic thing. I think he's really good. More Thunder. I just think, the jockey has to ride him a certain way. Similar sort of horse to like Forrest. Like, he has to be kind of, bashed up a little bit, like get him going type thing. So, More Thunder for the King Charles Stakes. That's probably one of the more far-fetched takes from this video. But if you like this sort of content, just like and subscribe, obviously. It's a bit dead at the moment, but King George is next week, or the week after. No, I think it's the next week. And then Goodwood's the week after. So, some really good racing coming up. But if you like this sort of content, just like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you later.